but I'll explain. We'll record this for everyone who can watch it later. We'll be sharing it on our social media. And to reiterate, the Radical Truth Teller, the way the project works and how we designed it back in 2014 was to uplift people just like you who are doing the work on the ground, who aren't always getting all of the support that they deserve, and to uplift their work and to center those who are on the front lines of the struggle for liberation and justice. So every month we pick someone to honor, and we support them financially, we support them politically. This is your month, this is your day. So I'm gonna give you some time to basically speak for yourself, and then we'll use this to promote you for the rest of the month. And I'll pass it to Dave as well, our co-founder and director.
I wonder, hey Dreisen, it's so good to see you.
You too.
I'm glad, really happy you could accept this award, especially given the work you're doing around reparations, and we really want to continue to uplift that work as well. So I'm super excited about that, and just like you've been on a grind for a minute. Maybe I do think, do we want to wait a little bit to see if more people are coming?
Sure.
Yeah. And I know we just had it like, so super. I'm gonna also just message folks to show up as well, because I know people wanted to hear you.
Dreisen, you actually do live in DC, is that right?
Yes.
You traveled home for this time.
Yeah, sometimes I'm not sure where I live anymore, because the travel is pretty frequent.
Yeah.
But DC area is, physical home in New Haven with my nuclear family, and then definitely a physical home in Tulsa. So
Place is just a state of mind, and those of us who belong to many places, that space of, I used to see it as very sort of culturally schizophrenic, this sense of here and there, and not be able to reconcile, assuming that there was just one place to be. But I think it's in the between places is a place. I think so many of us do live in that between place. Unless if you're Josh and you're grounded in Harrisburg, right?
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with what you're saying, and I feel that resonates with me. But yeah, I'm trying to build roots places. I feel like I'm always traveling or going somewhere.
Yeah. When you said New Haven, do you mean New Haven, Connecticut? Oh,
that's where I grew up.
That's where you grew up. Awesome. I spent some time in Hamden.
That's where I went to middle school and elementary school.
Oh, wow. So Hamden has an amazing, the university there has an amazing women's studies program. And that's one of my connections is the women's studies program at the university, but also, anyway, I have a long crazy.
It's in Hamden, not in New Haven.
Right, in Hamden, yeah.
Is it Quinnipiac?
Is it Southern Connecticut?
Oh, Southern. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess, yeah, it treads on the Hamden line, but we claim it as New Haven.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Take it.
Well, it literally borders both of
Yeah,
the
yeah,
cities.
yeah.
Yeah, okay, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, my brother graduated from Southern.
Yeah. Yeah. Whoa, what you got there, Josh?
Just some water. Gotta stay hydrated.
Indeed.
Yeah, it's good. I'm ready for that June. We're well past our fake summer. We're getting into real summer now here on the East Coast. So getting ready for that. I'm sure it's gonna be. I mean, honestly, I spend most of my time indoors when I'm working anyway, so it won't be too bad. But it's gonna be a hot one, I think.
Well, in New Hampshire, we're waiting for it to get a little hot.
Nice. I'm sure New Hampshire's beautiful in the summer.
What's that?
So I'm sure New Hampshire's beautiful in the summer.
It is very beautiful. I feel really gifted to live in this part by the water, and it's the truth.
Oh yeah, it's probably about boating time, huh?
Yeah,
I'm sure your son's gonna be out there in the water. I mean, if he's not already.
yeah, it's true.
Now, did he hike? Did he hike up to the Antarctic? Or was he sailing and then he hiked in?
So their company, the Sailing Collective, it's not like they partnered with, but they, you know, I don't know, they supported. There's a whole thing within the travel industry of, you know, creative ways to work together. So they advertised for it, and they brought their crew and people who wanted to take this trip onto a larger Antarctica
Mm.
charter. But it was it was super educational. I mean, it's not like it was a vacation.
Yeah.
Hanging out with the penguins. Should we start, Dave?
Mhm. Yeah, just for 1 minute. And we'll
We record so we can make this available. And I don't know if Dave mentioned to you, Dreisen, but we have a meeting at 8 o'clock with a city council in Iowa City, so we'll have to jump off at that time.
Yeah, I'm stepping away from events.
Okay, yeah.
So I am here to get started.
all right. Let's do this. Sorry, Jason.
Mhm.
But I don't really have to introduce you much, but I do want to share that number one, I want to thank you for being here, and also just acknowledge our ancestors in this moment, and also acknowledge the place where I'm at in the Nipmuc, who are the indigenous people on the land that I'm at. I just want to briefly appreciate you, because you're someone that I admire and look up to, and I appreciate your organizing. You remind me, you have the Bayard Rustin organizing spirit. And I don't know if anybody's ever compared you to Bayard Rustin, but I see you just moving steadily and making things happen behind the scenes and continuously telling the truth when called to do so, which not many people are willing to do when it's really uncomfortable, and even if you're unsupported. So I just want to honor you in this moment, because you're a radical truth teller, and you embody, like so many others who aren't acknowledged, but you particularly embody this spirit of telling the truth. And your credentials obviously are what they are, and they're brilliant and amazing, but it's who you are that we want to honor and what you do and contribute to the world. And as people watch this video, each month we support our radical truth tellers, and we want you to support them too. We're going to ask for your Cash App or anything you want to share publicly, and we ask people to support our radical truth tellers throughout the month. So, Melinda, did you want to say anything?
Well, one of the things that I would love to say to you, Dreisen, is I just love the what's the right word? It's not a contradiction. It's a paradox. I just love the sense of peace and calm that your voice and presence embodies while you're talking about some of the most intense stuff. And that's just like holding those two, being able to hold those two seemingly dichotomous emotions with such grace is just, it's just beautiful. So I learned so much from you, and I just really value who you are. So I'm looking forward to hearing you tonight. And I'm calling in from Abenaki land, people of the dawn, where the first light hits land.
Well, thank you, Dave and Melinda and Josh. Thank you, doesn't sum it up, but my thank yous are pretty heavy, wholesome thank yous. I have much gratitude for each of you individually, but also what the Truth Telling Project and the Grassroots Reparations Campaign has been seeking to do over the last several years, and what that has meant to people, both seen and unseen, right? Where that impact has rendered itself, and the genuineness for which you go about partnership, and about knowing who people are, knowing the people who you're doing the work with, right? Which I think is the relationship building is the key factor to all of this work being effective. And so I also admire, each of you for in your own unique ways. And, and these kind of things are kind of weird for me because, recognition is not something that's expected, nor is it really received a lot, right? And I just keep plugging away because somebody put this bug in me. One or a flood of my ancestors put some type of bug in me to just, lose my mind in this space and for our people. And it's been a beautiful, chaotic journey. But it's also been challenging in some of the best ways, challenging in the ways that, one, you're accomplishing things that people said 10 years ago or a century ago that were not possible, that were literally not possible. You're actually doing it. And you're navigating through layers and layers of, just human nature, but also politics and socioeconomic dynamics that are different in every city, in every community, but ultimately, repeating similar themes and patterns. And so I appreciate, Melinda, your even reflections around how I hold a lot, but I try to, survival means that some of this has to feel you have to feel ease at some point in time. And maybe that's my mellow voice that gives me the ease, because I don't always feel it inside. But to know that, being part of being an effective communicator and someone that's intuitive to other people's feelings and other people's lived experiences is also just about decentering yourself. And, that may manifest in our very unique ways as individuals. So all that's to say, I'm really appreciative and grateful for this. I come to this work as an individual that is, deeply committed to humanity, deeply committed to seeing the well-being of my people. And that's what drives me. I did not have a, career path. I did not have, I've been helping ever since I was little, right? We would be going to the soup kitchen ourselves, getting meals, but on the days that we had a meal, we would be at the soup kitchen serving, right? Like that's just been my life from early on. And so what is helping look like? What does honoring look like? What is supporting the well-being of your community look like? That's manifested itself from soup kitchen days and shelter days to active reparations organizing. And so here I am, descendant of enslaved people, have not fully connected the dots myself. It's part of something I've been reflective on over the last several months now, because I'm often helping other families and individuals connect the dots with their own familial experiences and lineage. And I want to, deeply commit to doing that within my own family. Knowing somewhat of who I come from on a maternal side of things, folks enslaved on plantations in Cotton Plant, Arkansas, and parts of Alabama on the paternal side, Trapp, Maryland, also a large plantation area. And so knowing this and feeling a duty and a purpose in a sense to help rectify those harms is deeply felt. Also having, family displaced from, Cotton Plant, Arkansas to then Little Rock, Arkansas, where, Jim Crow was on fire. And, definitely led to the conditions of my late grandmother leaving to go and start a life for the family in Connecticut, right? And so all of these various pieces are deeply felt and guide me in my various work projects. And so, I have spent time doing education and social policy. I've spent time doing, human rights work, connecting the dots on surveillance and human rights and surveillance, policing, and poverty, and how that interacts, how race as this made up social construct still dictates real life disparities. All of that feeds into what a world with reparation looks like, and what it could look like. And so I'm honored to be continuing a lot of the work I started at Human Rights Watch, though my journey with reparations started prior to actually having, any type of active, like official role of doing so, right? It meant being a student of the movement. It meant, when after school, after my, soccer or basketball practice, when I couldn't go straight home waiting for my mom to get after work. I was in the New Haven Public Library reading, about the Queen Mother Moors, and reading about in Cobra and others who were doing the work, the New African Independence Movement, We Charge Genocide. I was orienting myself to that literature and to that work even in high school. And so having that foundation then through studies in college, where I was able to build on that, but then into professional life, where being able to connect the dots between the right to reparation and how this is a real thing. This isn't just something a throwaway. This is an actual, the same way you have a right to education, the same way you have a right to health, you have a right to reparation if your rights are violated by a government entity. And we know we have no shortage of that harm and those perpetuated crimes in the US. And so what does it look like to be a part of this movement? Well, it's looked like being able to, support a community like Tulsa, Oklahoma, where I happen to be right now. It's a sacred day, June 1st. By this time, families across Greenwood were either scattered out of this area, this historic Greenwood district, which I'm sitting on, Cherokee land as well, or they were going through the rubble, picking up their burned family pictures, or picking up whatever was left, right? The one edifice, physical structure that was even left was the basement of Mount Vernon AME Church, which I'm actually looking at outside of the window right now, right? Supporting the 3 living survivors, as well as the extended community of descendants. Well, what does that actually look like? Sure, I can produce reports, which I have, Case for Reparations in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Human Rights Argument, which connects the dots, not just from the harms of the massacre, but the continuing harm. It is also a kind of matching argument to the ongoing public nuisance lawsuit led by Justice for Greenwood, which argues that there are continued harms from the Tulsa Race Massacre that are affecting the health and making this place inhabitable for Black residents and for descendants in Tulsa, particularly in the historic Greenwood district boundaries in North Tulsa. But it also looks like showing up. It looks like showing up when Trump came to town for Juneteenth 2020, and they thought it was going to be reparations 2.0. And it looks like answering calls when, I consider folks down here family, answering calls when, things aren't going right in life, right? And just leaning on each other and navigating through our various personal struggles that are connected to the work. And so, it's not just the policy making, it's really the relationship building. But that has been something that I've replicated in several other cities across the US, where I have provided support to the state of New York, to the state of California, to Detroit, Michigan, to Chicago, Illinois, to Greenbelt, Maryland, to Tallahassee, Oklahoma, and other places where communities are starving to rectify their situations, build community sustained infrastructure, get the various benefits and reparative measures that they need from these perpetrating entities, and creating the holistic kind of community repair circles that they need for survival. So through technical assistance work, that can appear in so many different ways. That can mean research, that can mean preparing testimony, that can mean, drafting op-eds. Communications and narrative shaping has been a huge part of my work over the last 5 years, I would say, in partnership with folks like Jerry Johnson, who, where we're trying to literally penetrate a brick wall of narratives that have kept us under, right? That have aided the institutions in their disenfranchisement of Black people. You don't have a successful subjugation of an entire people without a press and without ongoing narratives that continue to suppress their existence. And so knowing that and trying to infiltrate the mainstream, you won't see many op-eds with my name actually on it, but I can name every single one for which I've either drafted myself, provided the background for, or help these journalists, if it's not an op-ed, help these journalists actually present a fair and accurate story on what they are seeing around reparations. I also convene a coalition of now over 710 organizations participating at some capacity in support of federal reparations, but also of local and institutional reparations. This coalition, we kind of deemed Why We Can't Wait Reparations Coalition, after the famous kind of where do we go from here, Why We Can't Wait remarks from MLK Jr. and his interrogation of, we can't wait for these conditions to change. And that is one phrase that emits urgency at all times. And I want that to be a reminder to folks that just because the systems have done its abuse gradually doesn't mean that our repair has to come gradually, right? It is actually urgent that we rectify the situation, because there is an excess of people dying, of Black folks dying in particular. It was just a study by Washington Post that just in the last 2 decades, 1.6 million Black folks died excessively compared to white counterparts, right? These are preventable deaths, therefore, if they're excess deaths. You have Black people, though, dying from preventable diseases all across the country, including cervical cancer, right? And so these are a matter of life and death. You have actual lived data walking around every day that speak to this. And so mobilizing the coalition to not only work on federal legislation like HR 40, for which, helping to secure those votes, those 217 votes that were needed for the bill to pass the House, which the House never acted on. That takes courage. That takes a lot of work when the bill never had more than 50 sponsors prior and had lived in the congressional chambers for 33 years. Calling for an executive order was also a courageous act, where there are layers of the movement that you have to navigate, and political leadership that you have to navigate just to make that call explicitly when things are not going the way that they should. But also having the courageous nature to say whatever we have now on the books ain't enough, and mobilizing people to then support now over 300 organizations supporting the new legislation proposed by Cori Bush, the first Black woman to represent the Missouri Congressional 1 District, in her holistic and complete framework around reparations that was introduced in mid-May. And having organizations who have supported HR 40, but who have also supported truth, transformation, and racial healing commissions, and other people who have supported, maybe direct compensation measures to come together and support a framework for which the federal government can actually operate out of. This is the first time a framework like this has ever been proposed in the congressional record. And it's also the second reparations specific legislation introduced in 33 years. Prior to that, that would be the first, that would be the Reconstruction era reparations efforts. And so we're at a particular influx here, generational defining moment. Aside from the coalition work, which has also rendered providing more more infrastructure to students on campuses who want to organize around reparations. We had the pleasure of partnering with the Harvard Kennedy School and William Trotter Collaborative to produce a reparations toolkit for student activists and youth activists that we are hoping to engage on college campuses across the US. We want to prioritize HBCUs in this work, but, kind of press through these tensions too at the university level, where you have maybe the administration. I've talked to those folks and they're like, not talking about reparations. We get too many white dollars, or we get too much federal funding. But then you talk to the students who have appetite to move their institutions towards actual action. And so how do we cut through that in order to empower and provide the tools and infrastructure needed for these students, not just during their 4-year tenure, right? But to have these folks become reparationists even thereafter, and be, fully invested in the movement after their collegiate time. So much of the work within the coalition is just, what are the needs of the movement? And why don't we see youth engagement as strong as we need it to? As much as I value and have learned so much intergenerationally about how we're going to get this done, right? As I said, I've been a student of the movement. So many of these elders today that I have a privilege of organizing with and sharing ideas and thoughts with. But sometimes it's not all that, peaches and cream to do so. And so what does it look like to coexist in a space where we have the same goals, but maybe the tactics do need to change because this is a new day and there are newly cemented barriers to our liberation. And we have to be brave enough to identify those, regardless of if it pokes the bear, regardless of it costs you a congressional relationship, right? These things are bigger than that. Our people's destiny and liberation should not be wound up in one outcome, in one single relationship, right? It is so much bigger than that. And so really also empowering all these other coalition members, a number of them who had never stepped foot in the reparations space, had worked on racial justice issues, but never really, dabbled in the reparations space. So, this work is near and dear to my heart only because it expanded in such a way that I, wasn't fully prepared for. Right. It's an unfunded coalition, right, that miraculously has been doing incredible work despite not being resourced. The resources are the people thus far. I'm also currently supporting families as well who have been subject to property or land violence, land theft violence. And so families across the country who have been impacted by eminent domain or who have been moved off of their property due to private companies sharing an interest either separately or in conjunction with the government, which often displaces Black families. We have, cases where there was a freeway or a highway that needed to be built, and therefore you get a lowball estimate from the government to just kick you out and, go about your life somewhere else, right? Uprooting generations of families for an expressway that won't even benefit their life's trajectory. And so all of these pieces, right? They're different pieces of the movement space that are so necessary, supporting the legal frameworks. I'm not a lawyer myself. I'm a wannabe. I work with a whole lot of them, but it's also good to know that your work and your research can aid the legal strategy. And so behind the scenes, so much of my work too ends up aiding a number of these litigating efforts. Also lends to actual policymaking, written legislation, right? Being able to author, major parts of Cori Bush's legislation. These are the opportunities that at least I didn't dream about doing. I wish it wasn't even a necessity to do. But here I am just trying to respond to the needs of the space, the needs of the movement, the needs of my people, and, hope that I can sustain myself while doing it. But it is such a joy. I think why I have been able to last is because of the beautiful relationships that undergird the work. A blessing of the pandemic, if I can even say that, because like I know many others, endured incredible loss and even still through this time. But I gained so many family and friends through that building, having the opportunity where we all have Zoom fatigue now, but when it was time to get down and dirty, we were able to connect across countries and across time zones and organize for what we needed to do. And that was a blessing in disguise of some sorts in that particular moment, where the movement did expand, the education expanded. And we have big fights actively that we are trying to navigate. But there are too many areas and ways of possibility for us to get in our own way. So I am, again, grateful for this space, for this honor, and, just want to keep making the ancestors proud and also be a real, genuine partner to each person in this space, one that is nurturing, one that is caring, one that is amendable, one that is flexible, one that is self-accountable, and one that truly, shares the love that we all deserve. So I appreciate it.
Dreisen, just thank you so much. And we also want to be that support for you. So there are ways that you can think about that we can support you as well. Also, if you get a chance to drop any kind of cash app that you have, or, any, we're, we're offering, or we're sending you an award, monetary award that we do for our radical truth tellers, and we want our community who's watching this on YouTube or social media to also support Dreisen, because it takes a lot to do this. Like, it's traumatic dealing with, I know you're dealing with people who are traumatized, not just the people in communities, but even other activists are traumatized. We come to this work hurting. Sometimes we hurt each other. Often we hurt each other. And so how do you keep healed, stay focused, because we need your mind. We need you to keep doing this. So let us be, as a community, a soft place to land. Awesome. And I want to, usually we ask some questions, and maybe we can ask a couple questions. I have a few, and I know you have to go. So maybe we'll just say 2 questions. If there, our community is here right now, some folks, but if there are any other questions other than from me.
Yeah, I'd like to hop in with a question about something you mentioned. I was following your bio as you spoke, and you touched on a lot of things that I wanted to pay attention to the Why We Can't Wait Coalition, the case reparations in Tulsa, Oklahoma. But the thing that I wanted to kind of get more insight into is you mentioned working on the like narratives and having to like basically pick out a brick wall, as you described it, to change narratives. And I'm curious about like what, as that work has evolved, like what do you think is the differences? Like what were the paths you took from where you started to where you are now, and how do you feel like you dealt with those conceptual problems and met them?
Yeah, I appreciate. Yeah, thank you for that, Josh. I think it's still a work in progress. But I can say, look, a lot of work has gone into just even reframing, we'll take, for example, reframing the federal space, right? For so long, HR 40 was framed as stalled, or this uphill battle. And you finally have journalists, comparing HR 40, the commission to provide, reparations proposals, to other direct implementation efforts that have happened in the US, right? Juxtaposing the core of these issues, because to me, why we have not acted on reparations for Black people is because this country depends on Black exploitation and Black death. And therefore, repairing those harms will exploit this whole gimmick of a country and what its ideals supposedly are. And so just having an opportunity to say reparations is routine and it is being given to other communities, right? This is not an uphill battle. There is literally a political divisive plan to stop this from happening. That does not mean that it's stalled, right? Stalled is kind of like this passive positioning for which folks want you to believe it's just stalled. Nobody's thinking about it. How about people are thinking about it and actively blocking it from happening? Centering reparation stories into personal narrative and personal experience. That is something that you'll see with the North Carolina eugenics victims survivors special with the New York Times. You'll see the countless stories around Tulsa actually ground themselves in personal narrative. If you've seen reparations articles prior to the last 3-4 years, you'll notice that they mostly focus on the impossibility of them for Black folks, but also on just the numbers, the economics. And we're not talking about just numbers. Like, I'm tired of, seeing someone just go to an economist rather than the person that has experienced the harm to dictate what reparation is, right? And so just rerouting this whole process into, this is for the people, by the people, right? And particularly for the people and by the people that were harmed. And so shifting that space as well. Now, we have a long way to go in terms of navigating these counteractive debates around. I mean, you saw the headlines from Fox News. Well, Fox Business News did us a very great favor, and their news ticker was "Reparation is a moral and legal obligation for Black Americans." I'm like, great, thank you. It is. But then you have another Fox News article saying, $14 trillion, which is the proposal to close the wealth gap when Black people are 12% of the population, and we're now headed towards 14% of the population. 14 trillion is needed to close that Black-white wealth gap. The headline is saying 14 trillion cost 7 Afghanistan wars. That also does us, that to me narratively does us a actual favor. But the general public is going to see that and be, sensationalized by that, right? When I look at that headline, I'm like, this is exactly what we're talking about, because we also have spent, over $14 trillion over the last 2 decades on taxes for wars, right? And so it might be 7 Afghanistan wars, but what do they say? As someone who is a pure abolitionist, I hate to even say this, but if you don't want to do the time, don't do the crime, right? The reason why the bill is so high is because it's y'all's fault, right? That's not the fault of the people. And so these are the kind of narrative changes that you're seeing in some pieces. We're not seeing it widespread as much as we'd like yet, but have been able to dissect some of those spaces to prove more positive narratives towards reparations, specifically for Black folks.
Thank you. That was really, enlightening and incisive. I really appreciate that. I think that's honestly a really good way to kind of wrap this conversation up with that. In my mind, that lesson, because that is a thing that I think is only a perspective that you get from really being in it. And that's definitely where you are. And so I want to appreciate you even taking the time out of your very busy day. I know this being the week of the anniversary of the tragedy, that this is such a really, really powerful and important time for you. And I know you're sitting with that, so I want to give you your time. But we want to, wrap up with, a few words from you. If you want to just say, give us some closing statements, we'd love to hear from what you have to say. And then we can.
I just want to also send my love to everybody in Tulsa as well. So send you all love, and any way you want us to promote on our channels. So happy to be in community with you.
Yes, thank you so much. I will send that love around here. Please lift up any work from Justice for Greenwood or the Terrence Crutcher Foundation. We've been busy over these last few days, so lots of content to repost and recirculate. As I said earlier, we just should all be focused on the collective. That takes a bit of sacrifice, but we should not have to sacrifice our whole selves, our health, our sanity as a part of that process. And so I am committed to this work so much as others are committed to this work alongside me. Cannot do it alone, cannot tread alone, nor do I ever operate that way. Though some days feel darker than others. The light is that we're still existing. And that existence is in pure resistance to everything that's tried to destroy us. And so let's honor that every day. Let's look in each other's eyes. Let's enjoy each other's company and let that be our guiding light.
Thank you,
Ashe.
Dreisen, Ashe, Aho. And I wanted to ask you, Dreisen, as you know that this is Juneteenth begins our sacred season, reparative season, and we've had people coming on our calls for a teach-in for how to prepare for Reparation Sabbath and Sunday. And I'd like to ask you if there's parts of this recording, if not all, that we can share with the folks in their planning.
Sure.
Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank
Appreciate
you
you
all
so
so much. So grateful.
Of course. Thank you. We really appreciate it.
Take
Thank you.
care.
You too. Have a good
Bye.
rest of the evening.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye. Be well.
Okay, we get on another call. That was amazing. Aw,
Can you pause recording for a second? Let's see.
yes.